Hello my friends, how are you? Sean Farragut here for Trek Culture, and we have finally, although already, come to it. We've come to the last episode of Season 1 of Strange New Worlds. That's been 10 weeks, that's just flown by. Slightly ridiculous. Today we're going to be discussing Equality of Mercy, and I'm assuming you've seen the episode if you're here to watch it. If you haven't, will you not be so silly and will you go and watch the episode? We're going to go through everything that we did like and give it an up, and everything that we didn't like and we're going to give it a down. There's a lot to get through, so before we go in, thank you so much everyone who likes, shares and subscribes. Please make sure you hit those buttons. You're helping this channel grow like you're actually bleeding legends. Right, let's get into it. Now, let's just be honest straight away, the first up of this episode is going to Anson Mount. I have known in myself, ever since I saw the first picture of him as Captain Pike, that I thought, this guy, he at least looks the part. He's really, really good. You know, he can, that moment when he steps out of the transporter in Season 2 of Discovery Brother, I thought, yeah, this guy knows what he's at. This guy is great. This episode, not that I needed more proof after this entire season, but this episode really hammers home just how confident he is as Pike, even when he's showing signs of discomfort, even when he's dealing with the fear of the certain future ahead of him. Mount absolutely sells it. For the whole season, we've got a range. I still haven't forgot foppish Pike. Love him. Just this lovely opening scene of him, Captain Battelle again, which is a nice throwback to the first episode of the season. They're sharing dinner. She does that thing where he puts a plate of food in front of her. She has one bite and leaves, which has always annoyed me in television, but that's absolutely fine. Throughout the whole episode, the measured command and hearing all of the different viewpoints and not jumping to conclusions is a wonderful example of a person who's in control all the way through, even when the episode opens with him very much not in control, with him dealing with the slap in the face that was Ma'at appearing in front of him when he wasn't expecting it. Just throughout all of this story, I have to say, I really think that he is the MVP of this episode. I think by the time we come to the episode's close, and I'm not going to discuss everything in the first up because there's so much to get through, but by the time we come to the episode's close, the decisions that he makes make sense. This episode goes a long way toward helping us understand why Pike needs to be in the chair. And I really didn't think I was going to say that, but here we are. So I am upping Anson Mount in this episode. I am upping his performance, of which there are two. My second up of the episode, and you absolutely knew this was coming, the Monster Maroon. We see Christopher Pike in the Monster Maroon. And actually, I have to say that the way that they've changed it... Hold on, hang on. We're going to go live to Canon Watch.
Thank you, Sean, and everyone, and welcome to another episode of Canon Watch. As you can see, we have Christopher Pike appearing in the Monster Maroon. Now, the Monster Maroon is slightly different from its appearance in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. It has got the deltas that adorned the Strange New Worlds uniforms across the shoulders. The flap is a little bit of a different angle, however, the insignia stays the same. We're not really sure why these changes have occurred. Is it simply for some sort of aesthetic change, or is it because something has changed up time a little bit? Think of the episode Yesterday's Enterprise, where the uniforms appeared slightly different because of changes to the timeline. But it is now canon that the Monster Maroon is tied in very much with the original series and Strange New Worlds uniforms. Back to you in the studio, Sean.
Thanks a million, Sean. Damn good canon watching as usual. So the Monster Maroon has been changed up, and as of right this second, we don't really know why. Is it just simply another redesign, like the way they've changed the original series uniforms? Who knows? We'll come to it. Oh, you knew this was coming. It's my Latinum up for the week. It's the frickin' Monster Maroon. I've loved it ever since I knew it
existed.
Up. Sir Nays-a-Lot. Oh. Now, my next up of the episode goes to the fact that it switches from being an episode more or less set in the present time to an episode set in the future and becomes a retelling, a what-if scenario of course, the original series episode, Balance of Terror. Now, I'm not going to go into every single one of the Easter eggs until we get to Cetacean Observations, so I'm telling you now, stick around for Cetacean Observations. It's going to be a bit of a longer one now this week. Balance of Terror is one of the most critical episodes of the original series, for several reasons. Obviously, it's the introduction of the Romulans, it is the introduction of the fact that Spock and racism on the Enterprise with the character of Styles, and it's a crucial episode for James T. Kirk, showing how he is able to command the people under him while still having to deal with bigotry and racism in the 23rd century. In this what-if scenario of Balance of Terror, it, to me, suggests so much that something that I have been vocally hoping for was a retcon of the chair. This shows why they're not gonna do that. And they gave us a whole episode to go, well, okay, let's say we retcon the chair. Here's what could happen. Pike stays in command of the Enterprise, which means Kirk is not in command in this absolutely pivotal moment of Starfleet Romulan relations. The way they handle the situation is very, very differently. In a way, this harkens back to the opening of Discovery. You know, like Burnham was like, fire on the Klingons. That's the only way they're going to respect us. And instead, Giorgio says, no, we're going to lead forward with peace. Frankly, that's kind of what we're seeing here. In Balance of Terror, it's very much a submarine. It's just the two ships. It's the Enterprise. It's the Romulan bird of prey. And quite frankly, you don't know who's really going to come out of it on top. I mean, all right, it suggests there's going to be the lead actors, but you know what I mean. Whereas in this one, Pike is, understandably, let's lead with diplomacy. Let's lead with, we'll have a chat. We'll all be friends. And it's the exact wrong thing to do. Now, while the commander of the Romulan bird of prey, sorry, it's so easy to slip into Klingon bird of prey, but while the commander of the Romulan bird of prey at least seems amenable to this, none of the rest of them are. Ortegas, who is stepping into the role of Styles from the original series episode here, is pretty much on the same page. There's a lot of division. And again, more talk of that era between Enterprise and between Strange New Worlds, the Romulan War, which we have never seen. So absolutely, this to me, it was a wonderfully handled what-if scenario episode, redoing Balance of Terror without actually redoing it, because of course, we know how the episode ends, or, well, you'll get there. If you haven't seen it yet, why are you still watching this? But I love that they picked this episode specifically as the one why Pike can't be in command of the Enterprise for later events. It's really bloody important that he isn't. Now, I did say, of course, that the Romulan commander exists, and I think he's very, very good in this. Now, this is neither up nor down, but I would have loved James Frain to have been playing him and just carry over the gag, because, of course, in Balance of Terror, Mark Leonard, who would go on to play Sarek, played that original Romulan commander. I think I would have loved to have seen James Frain. No one address it, no one mention it, just have James Frain playing the Romulan commander. I thought it would be very funny. But listen, I'm not downing the episode over it or anything like that. What I am going to do is give my next up to the arrival of and design of the USS Farragut. One thing in the original series that was obviously a cost-saving technique that we've spoken about on this series of Ups and Downs a few times is the fact that, you know, every ship in Starfleet was a Constitution-class ship. And even last week's kind of reveal of the, I'm still calling it the Sombrero class, it's like, you know, it's the Peregrine, which is a Constitution class, it's just smaller. Like, whereas this one, we get a different style of ship. Now, we had, of course, in the very first episode, the one that is very evocative of the Salacum class. This one, it's quite evocative of Miranda class, I think, because you have just the saucer section with two drop-down nacelles. I really like it as a design, and I'm sure the inevitable model is on the way, and yep, you can be damn sure I'll be picking it up. It also ties really nicely into canon, because who is commanding the USS Farragut? James T. Kirk. So, Paul Wesley finally arrives, even though, like, we knew he was playing Kirk from the leaked set photos, so he finally arrives in this week's episode, and he's suggested to be a bloody good officer. He's our captain. The timeline works out nicely because in fact, I mean, this is set in 2265, 2266. This is set at that time. So it is right that he would be a captain. He's just not the captain of the Enterprise. And hold on. I'm getting another call. We're going back to Canon Watch.
Hello, Sean, and thank you for throwing back to Canon Watch. I am, of course, Sean again. It is now confirmed in canon again that the change in the Monster Maroon comes from Pike affecting the timeline and not ending up in the chair. You now have it. The simple existence of this man outside of the chair means that the tailors who are in charge of the uniforms in Starfleet change their minds. They think that, no, this man looks too good walking around with those deltas on his shoulders. We are keeping those. That is now canon. That is what has happened here. Yesterday's Enterprise, gotta be the same kind of logic. There it is. We're gonna cut back to you in the studio. That's it for Canon Watch today.
Thank you once again, Sean. Now, well, there you have it. Timelines are being changed. We're all in the same year. Kirk is in command of the USS Farragut. Pike is in command of the USS Enterprise. There's differences in the crews, and we really, really like it. We find out as well that La'an is stationed aboard the Farragut. We find out through a little bit of a conversation between La'an and Pike that something has happened with Una. She's no longer serving in Starfleet. Spock is still serving under Pike. This is a very important part of the episode, because if there's no reason for Pike to leave, then quite frankly, there's no reason for Spock to be reassigned, except that he does get bumped up to the first officer role. So he is, quite frankly, where you expect him to be at this time. He's just not surrounded by the same people. Shout out, by the way, to Lieutenant Uhura, who we saw in an earlier trailer, and of course, now confirmed that a little bit of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey going on. That's how she's in the closer to the original series uniform, and of course she's got her lieutenant's bars. This is a funny one. Paul Wesley is actually older than William Shatner was when he took on the role. However, this to me feels like a much younger Kirk. And that is not a bad thing in any way, because he's obviously had a different career path. He's still on board. He's still command of the Farragut. I would feel that he's not very commanding. And that is because when you put him beside Anson Mount's Pike, I think Pike sort of absorbs all of the looks and all of the attention. And in fairness, in theme with the episode, rightly so. Whereas this version of Kirk is definitely much more of a younger, hotshot kind of character. It works for me. So even though the year, he should be a bit more, he's not immature, but he should be maybe a bit more seasoned, which is probably just a worse way of saying mature. I did like him. I like that Sam is still serving aboard the Enterprise in this version of the 2260, so Pike is able to sit down with him and go, tell me a little bit about your brother. And I do like that. And also it's not important to have them in the same scene together. Like the fact that this is, I believe, no, the second time that Sam and Jim Kirk have been alive in the same story, the other one being Star Trek 09. I am on board. If we see more of Paul Wesley, which I'm sure we will, because we've seen leaked set photos of him standing beside La'an when she's wearing her red uniform. Anyway, I thought he was really, really good in this episode. Obviously, he's carrying the weight of 60 years of history on his shoulders. Does he manage to completely pull it off? I don't know. But I'm looking forward to seeing what else there is that he can do. The next up for me is that bird of prey. Now, we've seen this bird of prey before. We actually saw it in the 4th episode of the 1st season of Star Trek Picard, because they had updated the design, but they still said it was an old Romulan ship, so all they needed to do was pull the CGI file, and it absolutely works. I think it ties in very nicely with the aesthetic of Strange New Worlds, and it also, I suppose it retroactively now makes more sense that this would be the bird of prey that appears in Star Trek Picard. Wherever you come down on canon, continuity, alternate universes, that's totally fine. But we know that this Enterprise shows up in Picard Season 1 in a hologram. So it stands to reason that this bird of prey would also appear in Picard Season 1. It works for me aesthetically, I will say that. The interior of the bird of prey, I will say, very evocative of the Borg sets from Season 1 of Star Trek Picard as well. Thank you very much, Simon, for spotting that. You know, we've still got it clearly Romulan, but also it does look like we borrowed a few bits from the cube, and that's fine. Why wouldn't you? It's called being savvy with money, and I like it. I like it. But yeah, the bird of prey, I remember for the longest time when I was a nipper, I didn't like it. I didn't like the bird of prey design at all because I was spoiled with Klingon birds of prey and Romulan warbirds and everything. Now, as I get older, I love it. It's such a simple design, and yet it works for me. And there is a blink and you'll miss it moment when you see that eagle pattern or the raptor pattern underneath the bird of prey as well. We like. Again, not going too much into Easter eggs, but there's one moment that I just had to highlight as a wonderful up, and it is a complete lift from Balance of Terror. I will say that right now. It is the scene from Balance of Terror where the bird of prey passes through the trail of the comet, they pick up on a signal, they're able to get a visual of the inside of the bird of prey, and we get the reveal that Romulans look a lot like Vulcans. We get Fred Steiner's Romulan theme. Dun, 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 dun. Depending on how the edit goes, I may have just hummed the Romulan theme, or I may have jumped straight to this bit. So we'll see. And then everyone turns to look at Spock, and the camera zooms right in, and he does that. I've done the wrong eyebrow because I can't do that eyebrow. But anyway, yeah, it's beat for beat. It's the scene from Balance of Terror. And I thought of all of the scenes to reuse, that was a perfect one to do. There is another scene that is reused, which I actually don't think lands as well. This one, perfect. That was a massive up from me. Loved it. Now, speaking of Romulans and Romulan ships, up, the Romulan Fleet. For my due diligence for this video, I did go and check. Now, I didn't recognize any of these designs from such things as, say, Star Trek Online, for example, or other designs. So please, I would love to know if these are from any other existing media, but I couldn't see any myself. I really like how they tie in with the bird of prey, and yet they're still unique designs. It sounds like we take every opportunity here to rag on Picard Season 1's finale with the copy and paste fleets. That's actually not what I'm doing here, because I did like that we did have options for the Romulan ships in that scene. And in this one as well, I'd like that there are different versions of Romulan ships. It's not just all the one, which I think it's more examples of the franchise growing and learning. Now, technically, Strange New Worlds doesn't owe anything to Picard. They are different shows within the same franchise. Sure, they're different showrunners, they're different designers. You know, they don't have to be the same thing, and yet they seem to be honoring it. That really works for me. And actually, I'll take this moment to say, if you don't like Strange New Worlds, that is absolutely fine. That is entirely your decision. You know, it'll always come down to personal taste at the end of the day. If you love Strange New Worlds, that's absolutely fine. It will always come down to taste at the end of the day. However, what I will say to those people who say that the show is not good, you're wrong. It is good, it is well made, and there's a lot of care and planning gone into this show. You have every right to dislike it, but you are wrong if you say that it's bad. The borrowed scene that, for me, doesn't work as well is the use of I think from the moment I saw they were redoing Balance of Terror, I was expecting this line. It was, in another reality, I could have called you friend. It's not a down from me. It was inevitable. It was always coming. You're going to do Balance of Terror, you do that line. I thought he gave it an absolutely great go. I just thought maybe because there was so much else going on in the episode, the gravitas of that moment was a bit lost on me, unfortunately. But having said that, I did like the consequences of Pike's actions here. Like, his mercy gets that crew killed and starts a war, Giorgio. And it's a good point to remember. And it's also, it's handy when you know the ending. It's handy when you know the future and you know what will come of this. And because of time-traveling monks on Borath and time crystals, we know that this can be undone, but it's at a heavy cost. We jump back to Pike and Pike in the ready room together, or in Pike's quarters together, and Pike says that by the time of his uniform, which if things are right, we're about the 2280s at this point. So it's, it's a good 15, 16 years later, the war is still raging and millions of people have died because Pike showed mercy. It's a stark lesson to learn. You don't really want to be teaching the lesson, don't show mercy, only bad will come of that. Unfortunately, that is the case here. This show of what could happen, how many people could die, is, I will accept the fact that Pike's got to go in the chair. And it breaks my heart to say it. Much more so than in Discovery when it was very, very quick. I accept the fact that no, Christopher Pike has got to go in the chair. It's been that way since the 60s and it is that way now. I'm sad to know it, but it is the right thing to do, and it's handled so well. So much so, in fact, like of all the millions of people who died, there's one death that really, really sets Pike on his path to acceptance, and that of course is Spock. Because Spock is hit with basically he's at ground zero of the plasma impact on the Enterprise. Part of his leg is blown off, part of his face is burned away. We see the green blood, of course, again, some learnings from Picard, I'll move swiftly along. At this point, Nurse, or potentially Dr. Chapel, because it's hard to tell. She's in a new uniform, so I think for the purpose of this, I'm going to say Nurse Chapel, says he may physically survive, but he won't be Spock anymore. This, above all else, helps Pike decide. The two Pike stand there and say, it's not every day you get to lay down your life twice for the same person. It's such a dad joke, I really like it. But anyway, because there's two of us, you get it? Yeah, Chris, we got it, man, we got it. It's fine. This cuts to a scene of everyday Pike and Spock in the ready room. And Spock says to him, I believe I owe you a debt of gratitude, even if I'm not sure what for. And he calls him Chris. And that is a massive up from me. Because this episode, quite apart from being a what if on Balance of Terror, then becomes all the justification that we need for the events of the original series episode, The Menagerie, to take place. What a gift. 60 years later or so, what a gift. I thought it was handled perfectly, played to perfection. Everyone absolutely smashed it this week. Yes, technically there's a cliffhanger ending, but also is there. So, up. I like the fact that they do address the fact that, Una's Illyrian. Okay, so the events of going all the way back to Ghosts of Illyria sort of come forward. Someone's grasped on her at some point. Thanks a million. Captain Patel does make the point of saying, it's just my job, I don't like doing this. And I like it is a cliffhanger ending. Now, it's not the screaming cliffhanger, oh my god, I need to see what happens next season, but it's like, very much, I want to see where this goes, because Una never appeared after the cage. She didn't beta canon, but when it came to Where No Man Has Gone Before, of course, number one had been replaced by Spock as the first officer. And so there's no explanation of where the character went. So I would like to see what they're going to do with this in season 2. Now, whether Una resigns her commission, who knows? Whether Una is allowed to serve again, who knows? I'm really looking forward to seeing where they're going with this. I think it's a good sting for the end of the season without it being a screaming cliffhanger. And that works for me nicely. I will say that Rebecca Romijn probably didn't get enough to do in this episode, but thematically works for the episode. So really looking forward to seeing where this is going. Looking forward to seeing season 2, if and when it drops this year, which I really hope, which it probably won't, but please. While we wait, would you do me the favor of taking a walk with me to Cetacean Observations? Now, hello my friends, let's do this kind of quickly but still carefully. So, right off the bat, we get the reference to the neutral zone and of course the Romulan Star Empire. We have the different comm badge aboard Outpost 4, which tracks with what they were doing in the original series. Now, we also have, I did a little bit of a freeze frame when Pike was looking at Ma'at's, his background is, well, not service, he's only a kid, but it turns out that Ma'at plays water polo. Now, to all of the water polo enthusiasts out there, I apologize for this next joke, but bloody nobody plays water polo except for one very important person in Starfleet's history. Captain Jonathan Archer was a water polo enthusiast, which I thought was just, what a reference to put in there. Monster Maroon, how are you getting on? Admiral Farragut is here to take your call. There is references to the Klingon months of Borath, which of course, Discovery. Now, and the time crystal reappears again, which sets, of course, the events of the episode. And as Pike says, well, you know, the Klingons, there's nothing they like to solve better with a bat'leth. Wedding on board, which is how Balance of Terror opened. The person changing to being Pike performing the wedding ceremony as opposed to Kirk in the original episode. Outpost 4 I've already mentioned. Now, we get a mind meld in here, which hadn't been introduced at this point in the original series, but it's been introduced so many times at this point. Works out very, very nicely. Now, the USS Farragut, which we know Kirk served on before the Enterprise, thanks to the events of the episode Obsession of the original series. Now, the Romulan Bird of Prey makes its reappearance again. Now, the plasma weapon makes its reappearance. Now, that was cool. We haven't seen that one in a long time. That was, of course, what we saw in the very first, in Balance of Terror. We liked it a lot. And that plasma weapon was strong enough to destroy these outposts along the neutral zone. James Kirk. That'll do. James Kirk. Ortegas takes on the role of Styles in this episode. Now, Styles was the, quite frankly, racist from Balance of Terror, who immediately thinks Spock is a spy once it's revealed that the Romulans and the Vulcans look alike. Now, while there is certainly food for thought as to why he thought that way, they do look exactly alike. Ortegas very much takes on that role in this episode. And I like that they kept a character like that, even if it didn't have to be Styles. I don't think it hurts Ortegas' character at all because we don't know what's happened in the interim. You know, between 2259 and 2265-66, we don't know what's happened. So yeah, it could be a slightly more hard-boiled Ortegas. It works for me. Sam Kirk tells Pike, Jim doesn't like to lose. I'm glad they didn't say the words Kobayashi Maru. Let's just put it that way. Now we get the Comet, which again is from Balance of Terror again. That wonderful Fred Steiner Romulan theme tune plays. Now, we've heard this actually quite a bit in Star Trek Picard. One of my favorite endings to any episode is that reveal of the artifact at the last moment of Remembrance, the first episode of Picard, when that Romulan theme is kicking you over the head with it. If you have access to the soundtrack, it's the track called Twins. Just enjoy with as loud volume as you can get away with. Now, and of course that reveal on the eyebrow, that scene is lifted beat for beat from Balance of Terror. We have the remembrance that Una is an Illyrian. The Bird of Prey is damaged and it's trailing trilithium behind it. Trilithium, of course, being introduced in Star Trek Generations as something the Romulans were working on and the Klingons stole. Now there is a reference to the Riemann campaign, of course. Nice to hear that the Riemanns are getting a shout out. And we have a wonderful shot of Romulans in helmets, which we haven't seen for a long time. We saw it in Lower Decks, but I mean, it's been a long time since it's been happening in live action, so write that again, straight from Balance of Terror. Actually, funny on that, the helmets were introduced as a cost-saving measure, so they wouldn't have to put the actors in pointy-eared prosthesis. Now, they've obviously just been like, well, now it's just a nice tie back, so we still get the V on the forehead to show that they are going to put them in helmets and spend money on prosthetics. Budgets, aren't they a wonderful thing? The Romulan forehead bumps make a return, proving that every Romulan on this ship, and in fact the Praetor, are from the north. At 40 minutes, there is an audio cameo. Up. I'm an engineer, not a miracle worker. Yeah, all right, I'm a Scot. That's fine. It's Scotty! He's credited as engineer and played by the actor Matthew Wolfe. I like it because what were we saying last week? Is this going to pave the way for Scotty to appear? Well, yes, but not necessarily as soon as we were expecting. Absolutely love how they handled that. Now, of course, the Praetor, now the first, as far as I know, this is the first female Praetor we've ever seen of the Romulan Empire. So for me, I felt like it was a nice nod to the fact there was a female Praetor, and also it was like getting a cameo from the female Romulan commander from the Enterprise incident in as well, even though they're not said to be the same character. Then, of course, we have that in a different reality. I could have called you friend, had to be in there, works. Probably still prefer Mark Leonard saying it, but again, nice effort. Married couple, they flipped the roles. In the original series episode, it was the groom that bit the dust, now it's the bride. Aw, why does someone always have to die at a wedding? Oh wait, Gorn weddings. There is a cool shot, so when they're back in in Pike's quarters, older Pike picks up a photograph of younger Pike and Robert April in the Cage era uniforms, which I just really, really loved. Okay, so now we're doing a bit of a quick fire Kirk here. So, Pike says to Kirk, tell me a bit about yourself. Well, my dad's name was George Kirk, and he served aboard the USS Kelvin. There you go, reference to the J.J. Abrams continuity. And of course it absolutely works fine because the new timeline only appeared after the Narada appeared in that universe, which meant, yeah, the Kelvin works in both. So I really love that connective tissue. Then on Kirk's personal biography, we see George and Winona Kirk are his parents, as they were, that he was a witness to the massacre on Tarsus 4. That, of course, is a reference to the episode The Conscience of the King from the original series, in which it is revealed that Kirk is one of a handful of survivors from the Tarsus 4 colony, where thousands were killed so that others could live. It's a great episode. Go back and watch Conscience of the King. It is it's one of those great kind of this'll make you think episodes of the original series. Now, Kirk's birthday, 22nd of March, 2233, born in Iowa. So that's been set to right again, as opposed to being born on the shuttle, escaping the Kelvin. It's also listed that he has the palm leaf for the Axanar. I'm reading my own handwriting here. The palm leaf for the Axanar peace mission. That is absolutely 100% tracks with his track record. Thank you very much, Memory Alpha. And of course, he's listed as serving on the Farragut and the Republic. The nature of the show being what it is, there is zero chance that I have not missed any cetacean observation review. Please let me know in the comments below. Also, just to address something that was said last week, a totally fair point where I was talking about what I thought was CGI gore, and in fact it was revealed in the Ready Room that it's puppets. Unfortunately, the speed that we have to get these out, I haven't had a chance to watch the Ready Room, so let me know if anything I've said has aged like milk since this has been recorded to when this comes out. Be good to know, it'll be good to know. Folks, Stranger Worlds, Season 1, oh my goodness. It's already over, and scary thing is, I don't know when the next episode of Star Trek is coming along. We have sent out messages to the lovely Mike McMahon to know when Lower Decks is coming. As it stands, we don't know. We don't have a release date, and we don't have a trailer. However, you can trust us. We will bring it to you as soon as we know ourselves. We will let you know, and we will bring you whatever breakdowns we possibly can for that. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us week in, week out for these ups and downs. They are so much fun to make, and poor old Chris, we lock him in a cage. We say that for every hour's work that he does, he can have another thimble of water. So every time that you hit subscribe, that allows us to give him an extra half thimble. Because, he deserves it. He deserves it. Not too much, though. Not too much. Everyone, thank you so much. I will see you again soon. Whether it is Lower Decks or Prodigy, we don't know, but we will have you covered as to what's coming. I have, of course, been Sean for Trek Culture. You can find me over on Twitter at Sean Ferrick. You can also find Trek Culture at Trek Culture on Twitter as well. Please don't forget to subscribe and follow. Until I see you again, live long and prosper. Yous are all bleeding awesome. You're deadly. And I think I'm going to get my first lie-in next Thursday in months. To my friends in Ukraine, stay strong. We love you. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.